to Science Talk. I am your host and resident oceanographer, Jim Massa.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. It's great to be here with my buddy Jim. And let me tell you guys, we are covering Amoc again because we cover Amoc every time there's a new study, every time it's in the news, and it is in the news again. And so we are going to discuss what's the most important thing to understand. Jim's going to take you through it, but he's going to pinpoint what's the most important thing to understand, what may not be. And I'm going to show you really quickly, just to give you the example of what's in the news really quick. And then Jim is going to take over. But look at all the stuff that's in the news. It's confirmed. A major Atlantic ocean current is verging on collapse. The Atlantic meridional overturning circulation current is very messed up. And then if Amoc runs amok, life in the U.S. and Eastern Europe will change dramatically. Well, guys, guess what? We did called Amoc Run Amok. How many years ago, Jim? Hello, Jim. Oh, he's frozen. Are you kidding me? Oh, no. I got to get him back. Hang on, guys. We have a good show. How did he freeze? I thought he fell asleep on the couch. All right. Let me tell him to come back. Come back, Jim. You're frozen. How is everybody else? How's everybody doing? Now, you have to remember he's in Alaska. So let me tell him to come back. Okay. You're frozen. Come back out and come back in again. Yeah, we were just talking about how good his camera is, and now he's frozen. So, all right. So that's what I wanted to tell you about. And while he is looking to come back in again, then I'm going to show you. I'll go through these articles before we go on because he's got to get in touch with me. See that he's frozen. We had a great connection. Anyway, so let me move over here and show you this again while he's doing that. Here's another one. Tipping point toss of a coin for Atlantic circulation. Key Atlantic circulation nearing breakdown. If ocean system trouble could cause weather chaos. Atlantic Ocean circulation nearing devastating tipping point. I think he got it. He realizes it. Extreme climate impacts from collapse of key Atlantic ocean current could be worse than expected. Now, let me tell you guys, I remember when doing this show, and it was back on Facebook, looking for articles, and you couldn't find them. You couldn't find them. Now they're all over the place, but it's the interpretation. It's the interpretation that we have to think about. So I hope Jim is on his way back because we have a nice setup, and maybe while I'm waiting for Jim to come back, I do have a video I could play, and then I'll bring him in. So I think I'm going to play the video while we're trying to get this working. How's that sound? Does that sound like a plan while you're joining? We're going to play it. We'll play Steven Rahmstorf.
One of the concerns about the ongoing global warming is what effect that might have on the Gulf Stream system in the North Atlantic. The Gulf Stream system, or what we experts call the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, is a large-scale ocean current system that brings heat towards the northern Atlantic. We're standing here in Iceland, and Iceland is in that very region where the Gulf Stream system delivers a lot of heat, and that basically works like a central heating system by warm surface currents coming from the subtropics along the coast of North America, that water crossing the Atlantic in the North Atlantic current and then reaching the vicinity of Iceland, where it sinks down to great depth of about 2,000 meters down in the ocean and returns as a cold, deep current. And this is responsible for a large part of the relatively warm and equitable climate that is experienced in the North Atlantic as compared to other areas on the same latitude. Now, we know from the Earth history that this ocean circulation system in the North Atlantic has been quite unstable. There have been abrupt changes leading to abrupt climate changes in the North Atlantic region, affecting actually, in fact, the whole world. And the big question is, will global warming that human activities are causing now affect that ocean circulation system once again? And the reason to be worried by this is the fact that this ocean circulation is driven by the water sinking down in the high northern Atlantic latitudes, and that can only happen because this water reaches a very large density, because it is cold and because it is salty. These two things, the coldness and the salt, make this water heavy enough to sink. With global warming, we are warming up that water, which makes it less heavy, and at the same time we are adding more rain and more meltwater to the northern Atlantic, making the water less salty. And so the whole driving force that drives this overturning circulation gets weaker and weaker, and climate models have long predicted that this ocean current will slow down in response to global warming. Actually, this has even stirred the imagination of Hollywood, and many will be familiar with the film The Day After Tomorrow, which is based on that general idea of a collapse of the North Atlantic ocean circulation system. Now, is this already perhaps happening? We don't have direct current observations going far enough in time to know this for sure, but there are indeed indirect indications that the Gulf Stream system has been slowing down since about the 1930s. And those indirect indications are, for one thing, the sea surface temperature changes that we observe in the Atlantic. There is a very specific region where the sea surface gets colder when the North Atlantic circulation slows down, and that is the subpolar North Atlantic, the region to the south of Greenland and just to the south of Iceland. And as a matter of fact, that is practically the only region on this planet which has seen a cooling trend since the beginning of the 20th century. The whole rest of the globe has been warming since the beginning of the 20th century. And in fact, last year in 2015, the region to the south of Iceland saw record cold temperatures in the ocean since the beginning of record keeping in the year 1880. And we think that this is a telltale sign for a slowing down of the Gulf Stream system. There are also other indications from proxy data that suggest that there has been a change, a slowdown in this North Atlantic overturning system that is unprecedented in the previous 1,000 years at least. And in a way, that does not surprise me as a physical oceanographer, because we have seen unprecedented global warming in the 20th century, and as I explained just before, this tends to reduce the density of the seawater in the North Atlantic, making it harder for that water to sink, and that would be expected to lead to a slowdown of the ocean circulation. As I said, the models predicted that, but we find that the cooling that we actually observe in the North Atlantic is somewhat larger than the models would have predicted. So this may be one of the many things where we can say the climate models have been basically predicting the right thing, but they have been under-predicting it. The real changes are occurring faster than what we have expected.
All right, Jim. Well, welcome. Now that we heard from fellow oceanographer Stefan Ramsdorf, let's hear from you. Hi.
Hi. Well, my internet decided to take another dump, so there's no guarantee it won't in the next
It's like that with
hour or so.
every live guest on every platform on YouTube. So why should we be any different? So I did the introduction and everybody thought you were sleeping on the couch because you froze. I didn't even realize it because I was just yammering. But I told everybody, I showed all these different headlines of this round of stuff. And then we looked at Stephen Ramsdorf from 2016 talking about this in oceanography. And so take it over and tell me what you want to do and say hi to everybody out there. We've got 78 people. Yay. So far.
Oh, hi, folks. Well, here's another interesting thing. 10 days ago, it was minus 46 Fahrenheit at my house. Today is positive 22 Fahrenheit.
Oh, that's
a
weather
difference
whiplash.
of 68 degrees.
Holy shit. That's
Think
really
of it
big weather whiplash.
as the difference between 32 Fahrenheit and 100 Fahrenheit. Just to put in perspective as to what that difference in temperature means. So we kind of had a good old-fashioned Alaskan cold snap.
I would
seen one
say.
I haven't seen one of those in a few years.
When you have that kind of snow snap, do you still do your everyday going out walking and all? You're still outside? No, that's a little bit too nipply. A little bit too. Yeah.
I'll go out if it's minus 30 or 35, but starts getting into the 40 to 50 below range. That's just absolutely dangerous temperatures.
Yeah.
It was the same thing when I had my dog team. I wouldn't take them out in anything like colder than 25 below.
Ooh. And then what? Somebody asked, where is he? He lives in Fairbanks, Alaska. Sorry. We should have said that. Fairbanks, yay! All right.
So it's a completely different way around up here. You have to, those who work with nature or let nature call the shots are the ones who do well. Those who don't, they don't last.
Or they're back down here in the lower 48, as they call it.
But it's going to be interesting all over the planet, that's for sure. Anyway.
It is. So where would you like to start?
Well, we're going to talk about all these sensational headlines about Amoc shutting down and it's going to collapse, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, people need to understand, first of all, that oceanographers have been since the late 1990s and early 00s have already been measuring a slowdown, what we call chimney formation, which is deep water formation in the North Atlantic, specifically the Greenland, Icelandic, Norwegian Sea, which we just call Gin Sea for short. So it's already been slowing down. So we've already been measuring
15%, right? 15% slowdown?
Whatever it is.
I did my homework today. Well, this whole week.
The percentage really doesn't. It's not until you get into like the 70% you need to start worrying about it.
Okay.
I mean, as Wally Broker showed. So it's been happening, and It's happened before in the past. We have the proxy data that indicates this. It could be, primarily looking at the isotopic fractionation, looking at the sediment cores. Uh, we can reconstruct past climate. We've seen this before. One that most people are probably quite familiar with, and I think is where we would start off with tonight, is what happened during the Younger Dryas. Now, also keep in mind, Wally Broker did the a lot of work on this.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of pioneered all this stuff, and he showed that Amoc leads to what we now call the conveyor belt, and depending on which loop of it you follow, it can be a 570 to a 900-year cycle, that kind of
Wow.
to return to its starting point. And he also demonstrated that yes, Amoc could slow and stop in a matter of decades,
Yes.
but there were certain conditions that really required that to be put in place before that could really happen.
Wow.
Are those conditions in place right now? No, not quite. It's getting there, but it's not there yet.
Okay.
If AMOC were to completely stop, it'd probably be 15, 25 years,
Ooh.
perhaps. Might be sooner, but according to looking at the proxy data and Wally's work, that's probably a timeline that would
Okay.
involve that. So let's kind of go over the Younger Dryas
All
just
right.
to explain what that was. And as you can see right here, and this is from the NOAA page,
Mm-hmm.
the Younger Dryas is one of the most well-known examples of abrupt change. And about 14,500 years ago, Earth's climate began to shift from a cold glacial world to a warmer interglacial state. Partway through this transition, temperatures in the northern hemisphere suddenly returned to near glacial conditions. This near glacial period is called the Younger Dryas, named after a flower. And
Yes.
they get the scientific name Dryas octopetala. And they show a nice little picture of it. That grows in cold conditions, and that became common in Europe during this time. The end of the Younger Dryas, about 11,500.
You there? Oh no. Did he freeze again? Is this gonna happen tonight? Yeah, we talked about it. Oh, Jim. Guys, I'm so sorry. I guess living in Alaska, everything was supposed to be perfect tonight. And even his picture looks great. Hang on. Let me make sure he comes back in. Yep. All right. I'll tell him. Come on back in. Wow, he was really going. We were talking about the Younger Dryas, and we've done these before. We've talked about this before in our shows, but it's always good to redo it. So hopefully he comes back, guys. I really am getting like a little freaked out. We've got a big audience, and you all came for Jim, and I am not an oceanographer. So let's hope he comes back, and I'll probably have to edit this and make it an incredible video, but I'll leave the thing. By the way, if you have questions, and he will be back in, if you have questions, put a Q in front of it so I can see them. And wow, and let me see if I hear from him. Hang on. Oh my goodness. He said it was his internet, and I don't want to have to keep sending him new links. I'm thanking you for being patient, everyone. This is I'm not quite sure. Oh, he's here. All right, he should be back. No, he's not. Assign guest one. I have to click him off. He has to come back in. All right, hang on. So anyway, I want to thank you for having patience, and I'll say hi. How are you, Jake? What can you do? And Kristen Rose and Looney Tunes and Jean and Interglacial Optimist. Hi, Scott Andrews. Hello, Chris, aging hippie. He's making cookies. All right, so let's see. There's already one question I need to put a cue in. If Amoc stops, everything changes. Oh, wait, it's all happening now. Well, it kind of is. Yeah. Actually, let's play with this. Should I make it a different color? And it could match blue. The background. I don't know. I mean, I'm just blabbing, but I'm trying to hope that he comes in quickly. He saw, but there's a problem with the link. And I don't know what it is. I honestly don't know what it is. I'll have to I can make him a new one. Reset link. My software. Okay, I reset it. Let me send him another one. Okay, hang on, guys. Here. Yeah, I'm trying to be cool. All right. Maybe he sees this. We could try one more time. I don't know. I will tell you the truth. The other day when I had a show with Kelly, there was a bit of a problem. So I don't think it's my software, which is Ecamm Live. I don't think it is. I don't know. But all right. So let's chit chat before he comes back. And I'll talk to you guys. Let's put some comments up. I hope we don't have to reschedule this because we have a really good show. Hello. Let's see. Sandy secretly loves this techie stuff. Not when it's screwing everything up. No, I like it when it's working. I don't like it when it's not working. Let's see. What color should we use? Oh, how about blue? Or should we do green? I mean, I don't like it when I have to do this, especially when I'm not prepared. Oh, I love you too. I know. It's tough, but I'm okay. I'm all right. So he'll be back. He saw the link. It's just that he's not in the guest room yet. Hello, hello, hello. Everybody's saying hi. Yeah, I guess I will have to edit this into a good show because people are going to leave. And there's a lot of you here. Let's see. All right. You like the orange better? Really? Let me see. Oh, come on. I can't make everybody happy, right? Let's see. How about we try? I mean, I'm really just killing time here until he gets back in. You like that orange? How about this color? All right, we'll try that. There's a all right. He saw it. I don't know what's happening. All right. So, astrologer climate witness, how are you? The thing we don't talk about much is, okay, the Amoc slows down to a crawl soon, and chaos. How will the masses respond? It will be so terrible, no sugarcoating. Well, that's what Jim is, wanting to talk to us about and let us know. He's going to show us more tonight. Yes, we have a great crowd, and he's not here. I cannot talk about everything he can. Hello. Yes, Alaska, Yukon is so unpredictable, but it's not as cold as it was, right? Oh, wow. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Chris. Isn't that sweet? But the characters don't show for some reason. I have to look at it later. Or maybe they show up on YouTube. I don't know. Hello, singing way up. Nope, he's not back yet. Yeah, he's getting pissed. Shit. I mean, he's like, I could read it to you. Fucking internet is really pissing me off. That's all it is. Okay. There. Hi, Kristen. And everybody's so patient and wonderful. I'm so glad. Even Bill Nye, the science guy, was on TV talking about Amoc. Yeah, but we want to show you exactly where what you have to look at. and what you need to know. And that quote that I made for the thumbnail was actually from Steven Romsdorf. So that was in one of the articles we're going to go over. He'll be back. Hello, Devin. Hello, Poppy. All right. It is great to see all you guys. And let's see. What's up, folks? This sounds bleak, but not unexpected. No, it's not unexpected. And Jim and I were talking about it. You know, they've been studying this for years. Years. Meridional. Okay, let's all repeat after me. Meridional. Oh, let's see. Where are we? Let's go all the way down. Hi, David. Hello, anti-corporatist. Bill Nye the Science Guy. I can't send him another link. I do not know what's happening. Because when he's with me, he looks good, doesn't he? He got a new computer. And it has a better camera. Hi, June. Hi, Gazer. Boy, this is great. We just need the star of the show here. And he's not in the green room yet. All right. So if oh, yep. Okay, let's see. Yeah, the Amoc effing up is going to do more than just freeze Europe and cool the tropics. Yeah, and that's why we talk about it every time there's a new study. You know, in fact, I guess while we're waiting, let us go back. I'll go back into the overlays and I'll do a little bit of stuff here. He was talking about the Younger Dryas, but what I'm going to do is look at I'll show you what the last study was in July. And that was and this is what we talked about. This was the warning of a forthcoming collapse, all right? And it was in Nature, and this is what we talked about, but there's a lot of information on this, okay? So people really are learning. And I put that PBS video in the show notes. So that any of you that needed to catch up or understand a little more before we got started had it. And he just asked me, am I reading the first article? No. Nope. We are waiting for you very happily. I hope. So anyway, so this was what we did in July, and that was a pretty comprehensive show with Jennifer. And it does show, see, it has, you know, the overturning, the fingerprint and the sea surface temperature, but I don't want, this was in December 2020. So I really don't want to go too far ahead. I don't see him in the guest room. See, that's the problem. I don't see you in there. That's the problem. I'm telling everybody. See, when you're doing this stuff, technical stuff sucks, and I don't understand it. Do you want me to send you another link? See, that's the problem. Something's happening. I'll send him another link. We've had many links remade. And when you create a new link, I'll send him another one. Here. And hopefully he will come in. Yeah, I will definitely have to edit this show. So anyway, that's what I was showing you, you guys, the last one. And then but I really don't want to go over what he wants to go over. And I really want you guys to hang in with me. But look at all of the articles. Oh my God. But then they go back down. So August, you know, but there's a ton. If you want to learn about it, look at this. It goes all the way 2022, 2021, lots of stuff. And everybody's been saying the same thing for a long time. The ocean's about to flip a switch. That's 2021. And actually, literally, I did a video in 2017 and then I made a clip. Of it, but I don't have it to show you. And that's not what you want to see anyway. You want to see us. Oh, I'm hoping he's going to come back. If not, I guess we're going to have to try to redo this before you. It says link is not recognized. Let me ask him, make sure. You're in Chrome, right? Unfortunately, that's how it works. Better at Chrome. All right. Just give it to him again. Well, thank you for hanging out. Really, seriously. You're all still waiting. How wonderfully patient and awesome that is. Um, that's not going to help if it's, yeah, if, what, all right. What are you guys talking about? Yeah, it isn't me. Da, 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 da. Oh, my goodness. Can you put him on speakerphone to your mic? Well, I probably could. Um, let's see. It's not working. All right. Let me make one more. And if not, why don't you just call me and talk and I'll put my phone by the mic or we can reschedule. Yeah. See, we're just doing this. Okay, one more link, guys. If not, I feel I'm just really going to, well, I'm not going to cry. I mean, this is the age we live in. The guys in Fairbanks and I'm here, but I have really good internet now that we have broadband. We got rural broadband, and that made it all the difference for me to be able to run these shows and have the yeah, me too. Hopefully it will. Just stick around another few minutes, and even if you leave, come back. But I don't really have a show. Just set up my phone with the microphone. Yeah, well, all right. Do you, I don't know. I'll ask him. Just call me and I'll put a picture of you up? Question mark. This is funny because everybody's with me on the chat as I'm working with you. Click the link. He's not in there. All right, let me close this. Hang on, maybe I don't know if it's on my end. I hope it's not. It's environmental. It should be, he should be in here. It's not. Oh my good. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. Well, Jim, I'm going to end up editing this. Everybody stayed. Most everybody stayed. So this is awesome. They listened to me yammer and work with you. All right. Let's get back to where we were so we can get this.
Where did you guys lose me? Where
At the
was
younger
I in the
at
article?
at the younger Dryas. So we were still in that. So let's get the younger Dryas pulled up and you can talk about the younger Dryas. And
I assume you're going to put the links in the description
oh,
for
of
the what we.
course. Everything
Okay.
will be in the show notes. Yes.
So I'm going to jump right to where it says what caused the younger Dryas. And the younger Dryas occurred during a transition from the last glacial into the present interglacial called the Holocene. During this time, the North American or Laurentide ice sheet was rapidly melting and adding fresh water to the ocean. Scientists have hypothesized that just prior to the younger Dryas, meltwater fluxes were rerouted from the Mississippi River to the St. Lawrence River. Geochemical evidence from ocean sediment supports this notion. And they talk about other possible routing of meltwater.
Mm-hmm.
A more northerly routing of meltwater has a greater impact on the salinity and density of the surface ocean in the North Atlantic, which can cause a slowing of the ocean's thermohaline
Yes.
circulation and climate changes around the world. Multiple proxies for the thermohaline circulation indicate that such changes occurred during the younger Dryas. Eventually, as the meltwater flux abated, thermohaline circulation strengthened and climate recovered or returned to prior state. Would probably be a better way of putting that.
All right.
So, what's going on in the North Atlantic right now?
Yeah.
We've got meltwater. Okay. What the prior data indicates is that a massive influx of meltwater is because you're adding all this fresh water. You are decreasing the surface density. You're making it unlikely for the water to sink. And if that happens, the whole thermohaline flow slows or stops. So the main driver in all of this is salinity, basically affected by a huge amount of meltwater. So what's happening right now? Greenland is melting away. We have a huge amount of meltwater. And we need to also look at what's going on in the Arctic Ocean, specifically the Beaufort Gyre. The Beaufort Gyre is a clockwise flow, which is affected by the Arctic dipole. And the Arctic dipole, actually, when we first discovered it, we understood it to be a mechanism that determines whether or not sea ice stays circulating, floating around within the Arctic Ocean basin, or gets pushed out through the Fram. Well, thanks to a recent research by my good friend Igor Polyakov, who is looked at how the Arctic dipole is impacting the halocline in the Arctic Ocean, which then impacts the Beaufort Gyre. The Beaufort Gyre could also, and this is the interesting bit, it's a clockwise gyre, which means that the flow domes up in the middle. You have a convergence zone in the middle, and you've got riverine water input. So you have a doming of basically fresh water in the Beaufort Gyre, and conditions could happen that fresh water goes right out through Fram and adds it to the North Atlantic.
Holy crap. Is that the graphic I have, or that's not the one?
No.
Okay.
It's just something that extraneously just popped into my head.
Well, that's fine. Just let it go.
So you have all these riverine inputs from the Eurasian side, the North American side. This fresh water is getting entrained. And unless you have ventilation mechanisms or Ekman pumping to remove that vertically within the Arctic Ocean vertical structure, that can build up and get moved out. And this is where the role of the Arctic dipole impacting the halocline comes into play.
Wow.
So the main driver, the main point of all of this is that it's a freshwater buildup.
That's right.
If you look at, now there are other factors to look at. You can look at what's the North Atlantic Oscillation doing, what's the Arctic Oscillation doing, the position of those high and low systems and how they move, which way the air flows, what the temperature changes and precipitation change patterns across, Europe and so on. That all plays into a role, as does the Atlantic Multidecadal Oscillation, the AMO, which impacts sea surface temperature. All those are factors. We also need to look at what's called known as double diffusive mechanisms. When you have water that contains, salt, it's not just temperatures that mix, but the salinities that mix.
Right.
As it turns out, the salinity mixes at a higher rate than does the temperature mixes, than does the heat fluxes.
Okay.
And that can drive things in a certain way. A good example to look at this is what happens when sea ice forms, and you actually see the video of the brine rejection, which is the heavy salty water, and you just see
it goes
big plumes just going down.
This is
so
serious.
The salt mixes at a higher rate than does the temperature differences. So you have to look at that as well. And research is now showing that the role of mesoscale eddies is extremely important in grabbing the atmospheric heat and the CO2 and entraining it into the ocean. Basically, it's the go-between.
Right.
It's what facilitates the mixing between oceans and atmosphere, and it's part of the reason, as we're now understanding, why the oceans have absorbed 93% of greenhouse gas energy emissions over the last 50 plus years or so. That's what's going on. So Um,
And all
the other
that's
thing,
in the show notes. I put that in the show notes so everybody knows what is a mesoscale eddy, you know.
and so there are certain folks, the atmospheric folks, who are pushing the notion that aerosols are driving Amoc. Sorry, that is just simply incorrect. Now, I am not here to say that aerosols are not a factor. They are, with concern to the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
look at the work that Guy McPherson has done. Look at the videos he has posted. Okay, he, you know, has stated very well that the removal of sulfur can cause a warming. Now, the warming is, depending where you look at, but the general consensus is that the removal of the sulfur can cause a warming of about 0.4 C in the
In
atmosphere.
Okay.
Now, to say that, okay, you remove the aerosol, now the sea surface temperature is going to increase by 5 to 7 C when the atmosphere is increasing by 0.4 and air has a far lesser specific heat than does water. I'm sorry, the physics just doesn't bear that out. Now, you can say, well, you're letting heat energy get through. Okay, fine. Heat energy, when the light penetrates the ocean, okay, it depends where you're at. Some people say,
Okay.
well, light can penetrate down to 200 meters if you're on the equator.
Oh
And
yeah.
there's not much happening there. There's no
Right.
productivity. There's no phytoplankton to do with it. Yeah, so you can see down to 200 meters. Us oceanographers, when we do a lot of things like, oh, let's calculate the total productivity for the water column, we typically take 100 meters. Integrate from 0 to 100.
Okay.
We typically do that, but light penetration, actual heat energy, is typically, you can may see down to 100 meters, but the energy is most felt within the first, 5, 10, 15 meters, something
Really?
like that. And when you get into the North Atlantic, which can be very turbulent, you, you're lucky if it's 1 or 2 meters down,
How many?
and also 1 or 2. I
Mm.
mean, and also light energy, it attenuates very rapidly through the water column. In fact, it's a exponential decay function. So most of that heat is going to be absorbed right in the upper few meters. The initial absorption. It's now other physical mechanisms that then take that heat and then train it down to 700 meters.
Wow.
That graph that we'll talk about later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to say that the aerosol is driving the Amoc is just simply incorrect. I'm going to argue myself blue in the face with atmospheric folks about that. But here's the other thing that a lot of them don't take into account.
Okay.
You have phytoplankton that, wait for it, release dimethyl sulfide, DMS.
Ooh.
And as I talked about in my last video, we have sea ice algae can also release sulfur. So you're still going to have some sulfur in the
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Yeah. It's a confluence.
Now, whether that neutralizes the reduction in the sulfur from burning the fossil fuels, that remains to be seen. But it's an offset. So to me, that's further evidence that this notion of aerosols driving Amoc is poppycock.
Oh my. Oh my. I think there's going to be a bit of a controversy out there.
There was no controversy. The data simply doesn't bear it out.
Right.
There's no controversy at all. I
Good.
actually spent this weekend looking at about 8 or 9 peer-reviewed papers that looked at aerosol and Amoc, and they were very lengthy, very detailed.
I saw a
And the
couple.
consensus, looking at the papers, is there is no consensus.
Oh.
Some papers said, "Oh yeah, there's an effect." Other papers were saying, "We've getting contradictory results here." Other papers are saying, "No, that it doesn't do diddly squat." So and some tried to do some regression analysis where, if you have a bunch of variables,
Mm-hmm.
what percentage does each variable contribute to the observed impacts on the
Right.
dependent variable? It was kind of all over the place. It was nothing that was like, oh, this is over 50% of the variation. So again, aerosol masking effect impacts more the atmosphere than it does the ocean. That's my take on it. Looking at the papers, knowing from as an oceanographer and looking at the oceanography research and just, well, I don't know, basic thermodynamics and physics,
Okay.
the main driver is changes in the salinity, changes in the density. That's
But
the
it
main
happens
driver.
from warming, and it happens from the warming, the changes in the
Right.
density and the salinity.
Some people can argue, well, without the aerosol, you have more salinity melting the ice. Okay, it's still the ice.
Right. And I
It's
think
still the
there's
ice melt.
you think
It's
there'll be
still the
further
ice melt,
further studies
and
on this? Will people do further?
probably,
Yeah.
probably. But so you can say, if I was to be generous, that okay, removal of aerosol is ancillary, but it's not a driver, not a main driver. That's my main argument.
All right.
So
It's
anyway,
not a
so
driver, but there's plenty of
oh
other drivers. We have a plethora of drivers.
yeah, it's called ice melt.
Yeah. Yeah. Really. And it's not just a piddle anymore, like Wally Broker had said about Greenland back in the last interview he did. Remember that? He said it was a piddle,
Yeah,
but it's getting to be a little more than a piddle, isn't it?
yeah, and that was what 20 years ago, that interview,
No, that
something like that.
actually, no, I think it was 17 because he was talking about the bigger issues
And
going on. I think it was seven, it was right before, it was the last one before he passed away.
yeah, because I did a tribute video to him
Yeah,
when he
I
passed.
know. I know. And we like to honor him every show when we do an
I
AMOC
mean,
show.
hey, I mean the guy who never retired, he literally worked until the day he died.
Wally
They found him
Broker.
dead. Yeah, they found him dead at his desk. Seriously, the guy worked until literally until the last second.
Well, he was a very dedicated scientist and he was quite bright. And, what do you call
And he's
him?
quite
The daddy of
he's called the grandfather of climate
grandfather.
science. A lot of the techniques that we use, he developed. Isotopic fractionation is one of them, probably the
Wow.
best well known. He wrote a book called Tracers in the Sea, looking at radioisotopes in the ocean as a method for following water masses, identifying water masses, and tracing vertical and horizontal water movement. That book came out 50 years ago, 1974. It's still the
Still,
Bible.
that's great.
It's still the go-to book.
Good. Just like William Catton's Overshoot is the Bible as well for ecology and for the earth, actually, right?
I'm not I'm not a chemical oceanographer, but by Jolly, I've got a copy of that book.
Oh, joy. He turned British for a minute. All right. Well, where do you want to go from here?
I want to look at the Nova article.
All right.
You know,
Let
a
me.
major Atlantic current is at a critical transition point.
All right. We're going to get ready and pull that up. That's the
Is
Nova
that
article. All right. Here we go. Here's the Nova article.
shows a nice little structure on stilts with waves moving in. Anyway, new evidence suggests new. It's not new.
Well, this is
Okay.
2022, right? This one? Yeah,
Yeah,
2022.
yeah. Suggests that the largest system the Gulf Stream is part of is approaching a tipping point that could cause dramatic shifts in global weather patterns. Okay, so let's see what they prattle on about. And again, about 15,000 years ago, the Earth began to transition from a state of heavy glacial covers to a period of warming. Temperatures rose, large ice sheets that once covered most of North America and Europe thawed, melted, oceans begin to rise. But after 2,000 years of warming, the Earth suddenly cooled to near glacial conditions, and that stayed that way for more than 1,000 years. And scientists have, which is now the Younger Dryas. An analysis published in the journal Nature Climate Change found that the largest system that the Gulf Stream is part of. Now, I appreciate the fact that they correctly say that the Gulf Stream is is part of a larger system, not the system. And we'll pull up that graphic later to explain. So they got that correct, because a lot of other articles I'm seeing saying the Gulf Stream is going to collapse, which is nonsense. Okay, it just is, and we'll discuss that later.
Okay.
Okay, and so Amoc is approaching a tipping point. Over the last century, this ocean circulation system has moved closer to a critical threshold. Over the last century. When
Gotcha.
was the legislation passed to reduce the sulfur that was contained in shipboard emissions? That was like what, a decade or so ago? I don't remember the
Yeah.
exact date. So
Yeah.
again, to say that aerosols drive an Amoc is just wrong. Right? And it may have shifted the current strong circulation to a much weaker one. Should Amoc weaken substantially, it could bring intense cold and stronger storms to Europe, raise sea levels across the northeast coast of North America, disrupt the flow of vital nutrients that phytoplankton and marine algae require.
Mm.
And it's a big system, and they got the Gulf Stream, so on and so forth. We'll look at a better graphic later on.
Okay.
Scientists hypothesize that such a shutdown may have occurred during the Younger Dryas. As one hypothesis goes, scientists hypothesize, then they say as the theory goes. Okay, no. It's one hypothesis. Okay, as one hypothesis goes, the planet warmed, glacial floodwaters leaked into the Arctic and into the North Atlantic. So leaking into the Arctic, that's my reference to the Beaufort Gyre, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So that diluted the ocean's saltiness, weakened Amoc, and then you have a massive ice sheet covering millions of miles that helped contain an enormous glacial lake in what is now Canada. That began to melt away, and then that lake just went right out into the ocean. And it was a rapid influx, rapidly decreasing the salinity, and basically shutting off vertical movement, sinking.
Wow.
And so now they're saying that it's at its weakest point.
Mm-hmm.
That has been in a millennia, and it's tough to get an exact handle on this, but they're looking at 8 independent sea surface temperature salinity data sets that cover 150 years. Climate change is destabilizing Amoc.
Yeah.
And the stabilizing force of Amoc is cold, salt-rich water, which sinks to the ocean, well,
Yep.
not to the floor exactly, but down to about 2,000, 2,500 meters. And that is what keeps Amoc going. Okay? Remember, salinity and temperature both determine density of oceanic water. Cold, salty water is the most dense. So when the North Atlantic drift
Yeah.
gives off its heat, it's already salty, gives off its heat, it becomes cold and salty, which is very dense, and that's why it sinks, forming Amoc. Well, you throw a pile of fresh water in there, that's going to get disrupted.
Uh-huh. And that's what we're seeing.
So as carbon dioxide accumulates in the Earth's atmosphere and ocean trap more heat. As global temperatures rise, they trigger more glacial ice to melt. Influx of fresh water into North Atlantic from the Greenland ice sheet will reduce North Atlantic salinity and density, making the water lighter, less able to sink. Right? We discussed this. I discussed that. You discussed that with Jen, right? We're all
Yes.
discussing that stuff, right? So this is not news to those watching us right now.
No.
Okay.
No. Our
So what are
hardcore
the
Amoc followers.
implications? Well, it could drastically affect rainfall patterns in tropical monsoon systems. Monsoons supply water to many parts of the world. Obviously over in the Indian Ocean side of things,
Yeah.
it could affect the impact of Maldives. Weakening of Amoc could bring less summer rainfall to South Asia and the Sahel. Right? Changing
That's
monsoon systems
scary.
could have severe consequences for the population living there. Right? Then you tie into how does that impact the North Atlantic Oscillation, the Arctic Oscillation. That changes airflow patterns, temperature regimes across Europe, precipitation regimes across
Yes.
Europe,
Very
and
serious.
so forth. So that so folks can read the rest of the article if they are so inclined. But this is stuff that we've been discussing for some time. Now, I'm going to further present what I think might be the implications. In the past, when Amoc slowed and shut down, basically the whole northern hemisphere kind of went in. We had the growth of glacial sheets across most of northern hemisphere,
Mm-hmm.
and especially North America, and so on. Will that happen now? Currently, if you had asked me this question 20 years ago, I would have said, yeah. Now I don't quite hold to that thinking because of all the ocean heat that you still have in the Pacific Ocean, north and south, all the ocean heat in the Southern Ocean, all the ocean heat in the Indian Ocean. What I think will happen is you will have instead of a hemispheric cooling, you'll have a regional cooling. And that regional cooling is going to be around Iceland, the UK, Europe. They're going to be in for some snotty conditions.
Oh, God.
So that is my take. Because you're still going to have that ocean heat diffusing in the
Right.
other location. You won't necessarily have that fresh water acting as a trap, as a lid,
Mm-hmm.
slowing down the rate of at least in the North Atlantic. You get to this, the southern part of the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic, you're going to still have heat fluxing to the atmosphere. So that's my take on it at the moment.
Okay, it's a good take. It and it adds to everything that I have been reading, but it helps me understand, listening to you describe it, because how long have we been doing this? Okay, well, where do you want to go next?
We can quickly look at that CNN article,
All
which is
right.
just more of a recent headline. One of the you know, I don't know if this one didn't quite strike me as being completely sensationalism, but it's close.
Right, and that's where I got the Romsdorf
Yeah.
quote for the title. Yeah. All right. Go for it.
Critical Atlantic Ocean current system is showing early signs of collapse, prompting warning from scientists. Okay, so here's some nice waves in the North Atlantic. See, when you have that kind of activity, which is commonplace in North Atlantic,
Yeah.
sunlight energy is not going to penetrate that very far.
Oh,
You know?
shit.
You might have some mixing that will entrain heat and CO2,
Okay.
but direct sunlight energy, no. Sorry.
Just at the top, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
A crucial system of ocean currents may already be on course to collapse, and we'll clarify that in a bit. Using exceptionally complex, expensive, expensive, everything's money, right? Computing systems, scientists found a new way to detect an early warning signals, and a study in the journal Science Advances. So AMOC, which the Gulf Stream is a part, not quite accurate, works like a giant global conveyor belt taking warmer water from the tropics toward the North Atlantic. That it does. But the part that goes to the North Atlantic is a branch of the Gulf Stream,
Right.
more precisely, a branch of the North Atlantic gyre. That's the North Atlantic drift.
Mhm.
And that water cools, becomes saltier, and sinks. Okay, we discussed that. Currents carry heat and nutrients to different areas of the globe. So, yeah, we're
They
taking
do.
heat, warmth from lower latitudes, bringing it to higher latitude. That
Mm-hmm.
what helps moderate the climate in the UK, Scandinavia, so forth. It's also bringing, it's water moving along at various amounts of sphere drips, and it's bringing nutrients. which helps the phytoplankton.
And
That's
that's the
all.
measurement, sphere dips.
Yeah, right. And sphere drip is simply a volume per second.
Right.
It's 1 million cubic meters of water per second. It doesn't give you a hint as to what the velocity is. It just tells you the volume. And in return, when the water sinks and travels south, you bring in the cool, the cooler heat, lesser heat from high latitudes to southern latitude. So in this way, it kind of moderates low to high latitudes at both ends. Well, if you slow that down, what's going to happen is the heat is going to start accumulating at lower latitude, and the cool is going to start accumulating at higher latitude. And the way to mix that and distribute that is going to be impacted and negatively so.
Okay.
So the new study provides an important breakthrough. And the scientists used this supercomputer to run complex models. And what they did was in the models, they slowly increased the freshwater in the model, and the Amoc gradually weakened until it just collapsed outright.
Okay.
And that's basically what so it was a modeling study.
Sure.
What this does.
How else are they going to do it? They're going to collapse the Amoc. I mean, we have to trust the models.
Right. You take your best data, you input it, you work the models to recreate what's been observed, and then you can extrapolate from there. So they're saying that Amoc collapse could cause sea levels to surge by about 1 meter. Okay, and here's that Stefan Rahmstorff, and he confirms that the Amoc is a tipping point, which if breaks down if the North Atlantic Ocean is diluted with fresh water. And so they go on to talk about an earlier 2021 study found that Amoc was weaker than any other time in the past 1,000 years, and it's on a way to collapsing. So
it's how long? Yeah, how long?
Exactly. Not you've heard me discuss not just only, Amoc, but anything else, temperature rise, changes, and all that kind of. It's the rate of change.
And we don't have a crystal ball on that.
No, we don't. I mean, it's the rate of change, but the rate of change is indicating that things are faster than what we have data for, proxy or otherwise.
Faster than previously expected. And if Jennifer was here, she would have said it.
Yeah, exactly. So, in these reports, you're not hearing anything about aerosols.
No, not in these.
Aerosols, more, in my view, it's more limited to atmospheric processes, but not so much oceanic processes.
But that's serious enough, I mean, it's serious enough. And it's.
But again, you still have to compute a complete regression model, and you have to calculate the contribution of each parameter to the overall response.
Okay. Absolutely.
When you do that, the aerosol contribution, let's just keep it to atmospheric warming for the moment. The contribution of aerosols to atmospheric warming is a far lower percentage than of greenhouse gases, or the addition of permafrost dying, releasing more greenhouse gases. So you have to look at and you do this in regression analysis. Variable A contributes 7% to the response. Variable B contributes 32% to the response. And so on. And then, what about the interaction? Variable A and B interacting contribute, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And then you look at that, and then you can, get an idea of these parameters are important contributors, these are secondary contributors, and so forth. So, anyway.
Very good.
So, if maybe we can pull up the first diagram with the ocean current.
Yeah. We can. Yes, I will pull that up. Yep, there we go. Oh, you want the other one? Sorry, of course.
We'll do that one next.
Of course, I
we'll
did
do that
the
one
wrong
next.
one. Of course, I did the wrong one. All right, let's go.
There we go. Okay. Obviously, everyone recognizes that this is the Atlantic Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're showing is the Atlantic gyra, the gyra in the North Atlantic. Okay. And if you look towards about just above the center of the figure there, you see that branch that looks starts out in red. It kind of becomes a little more orangey as it goes past Iceland and so forth.
Yeah.
Everyone see that?
I hope so. I don't know if my pointer's working or not. I don't think it is. Go ahead.
But you see where it goes towards the ice sheet in the Arctic.
Yes.
Okay,
Top.
that's the North Atlantic drift. That is a branch of the North Atlantic gyra. The Gulf Stream is what you see hugging the eastern seaboard of the U.S. That's the Gulf Stream.
Right there. I wish my pointer worked on the picture. It doesn't. Shoot.
Okay, the
Yeah.
North Atlantic drift. That is what cools down. That's what brings the heat to those northern higher latitude.
Yep.
That's what cools down. That's what sinks when it cools down. So if the Amoc were to shut down because the North Atlantic drift completely stops, the gyra will continue. The gyra will not stop. So when you see, headlines, the Gulf Stream is in danger of collapsing and stopping, that's utter BS. Earth is a round object with liquid on it, a lot of liquid on it, that sloshes around. It also is a rotating body. And as long as Earth rotates, you're going to have gyres.
Right. So it won't stop. But the key, and I wish I had my pointer because I'm pointing right in the middle. What did you tell me? Really has to be paid attention to. Right in the middle of the graphic. That's where all the action is. Like you just said, the water will still continue. The Gulf Stream will still continue, but it is the issue of right in the middle, and the blob too.
What will slow down or possibly stop is the North Atlantic drift.
Yeah.
And that's where you see the deep water formation is indicated with the blue arrows. There's a little bit of a return loop that joins up with what comes down out of the Aegean Sea.
Yes.
And that blue arrows is the deep water flowing down. If you look at the eastern seaboard, all right, where the Gulf Stream is, you notice that indicating by a very thin, widthwise, the width of that is quite narrow. That's called western intensification. It's a feature of gyres. Yeah,
Wow.
because of the direction the Earth is rotating.
Mm-hmm.
If you look where it goes south off the coast of Africa, you see how it's wider. Okay.
Yep.
It's wider, and it's also traveling at a much slower rate. So when gyres spin, it's faster on the western side, slower on the eastern side of the gyre.
That's wild. That's pretty wild, actually.
And the red that you see coming in from the South Atlantic is part of the upwelled return flow from the conveyor belt.
Gotcha.
And they're also indicating some direction of wind. For example, what would you call that? Beige color or something like that. But you see that blowing towards, you got an arrow pointing right at Portugal and Spain. Those two arrows there represent, and then it continues towards Europe. That's a wind. Those are indicating winds.
Yeah, and wind plays a big part in this also.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wind stress helps drive currents.
Absolutely. Yes. I had a graphic, but I didn't bring it up. Oh well. Oh well. Okay.
So it's important for folks who understand that the Gulf Stream is not going to stop. Okay, it's just not. It may, because you have less water coming off of there, it could perhaps slow a bit. The sphere drifts might drop a bit, but it's not going to stop. It will continue.
Jim.
It will not if we lose the North Atlantic drift, you're not going to
Yeah.
bring the heat and the nutrients up north. That's
So
basically.
I had a question from, and I want to find it because this is important. It was Jean asked a question, and I want to find it about the sea life. Oh, here we go. So do you have any information on how this will affect sea animals? Okay, so in not necessarily in the worst case scenario, but perhaps in the unfolding scenario.
Affect what was specifically
Sea
affecting?
life.
We talk.
Sea
No,
life.
but what? But no, no, no.
Oh,
What
the
effectively,
the
specifically affecting sea life? Are we talking the slowdown of the North Atlantic drift? Is that what was
well, I don't know if
talking about?
she's specific, but I would say for me, if I was asking that question, I would probably say yes.
Because keep in mind, the center of most oceanic gyres is a biological desert. Because you have a convergence zone in the middle, so with a downwelling in the center. So
Okay.
not much biological activity takes place in the center of the gyres.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the activity is coastal, because if water goes down in the middle, it's going to come up on the sides, which means you have upwelling or Ekman
That's
upwelling on the side there.
okay.
So on the edges of the gyre, well, probably not, although there's studies showing that the gyre has actually shifted a
Mm-hmm.
little bit northward, which could have an impact on the sea life. In the North Atlantic, a slowdown with not only the stratification but with fewer nutrients will have a bad effect on the whole food chain and food web, because if the phytos aren't getting their nutrients,
Right.
well, everything from depends on the phytos. It
Yeah.
kind of goes to shit from there.
That's a big thing. And I think that was good because that's a more specific uh, answer, than thinking about all. I mean, of course, we think about all of the sea life, the fish, and that. What about, here's a question. So, what about all the trawlers that fish up for tuna, sardines, and mackerel? Will there be an effect with a slowdown of, let's say, the circulation slowdown because it's still with the nutrients, isn't it?
Well, we're overfishing the ocean stocks no
Well,
matter
now,
what.
yeah,
So, I mean, just remember what happened 30 something years ago in Newfoundland when they just totally shut down all the fisheries. And one fisherman
yeah.
stood up and said, "Let's face it, boys, we caught them all."
Oh my
I mean,
God!
seriously. I
Face it,
mean,
boys, we caught them all. Oh
yeah,
man,
so we're overfishing
yeah.
the ocean. I just mentioned a little while ago that most oceanic gyres are unproductive. The, an exception is the Gulf of Alaska. The Gulf of Alaska has a counterclockwise gyre with an upwelling in the center. Upwelling brings a whole load of nutrients,
Oh
and that's why the Gulf of Alaska is biodiversity rich.
wow.
Why the humpback whales go there and the gray whales go there to feed.
Yeah, they should be allowed there. We should not be taking their food.
And if Amoc slows or stops, part of that branch upwells in the Southern Ocean. Southern Ocean is the most productive open ocean area on the planet. It upwells bringing nutrients. If that upwelling slows or stops, no more nutrients. That whole
Oh
food chain goes under.
shit, that's pretty serious. It's serious. Okay, here's one more question from me. So, what happens? And this is silly. You're going to think it's silly, but okay, humans are dying off. Humans are going extinct. What will be going on with the ocean circulation? It'll still be circulating without us.
It depends what the thermohaline parameters are doing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we set. Don't forget, we talked about this before. Lag effects. We said, there's still going to be all this lag effect happening, and
Absolutely.
so this is going to continue. You know, We could
Yes.
stop fossil fuel emissions right this very second. You're going to have a lag effect. We're still going to have melting. We're still going to have thawing permafrost. We're still going to have a freshwater buildup in the North Atlantic. It's still
Uh-huh.
going to happen.
Okay. All right. There was one question I wanted to find from Brett, Obsolete Optics, our Discord, whatever you want to call them, admin, manager. Why does the word eutrophication keep popping into my head, and what does it mean again?
Eutrophication is basically an overabundance of nutrients that then the phytos go crazy and they do a lot of photosynthesizing. But remember, phytoplanktons also respire. And
Oh,
algae, they respire and they use up oxygen. So the result is they actually use up
oops.
a lot of the oxygen, creating a high BOD, biological oxygen demand, that results in fish kills. You see this a lot with, you know, sewage discharge or the fertilizer runoff from
Right,
agricultural practices.
right.
It gets introduced, and yeah, it just kind of sends things crazy. However, you got to put this in context. If someone says, "Oh, look at that beautiful crystal clear lake. You can see a long ways underwater." That is an oligotrophic lake.
Hmm.
That is a lake that has poor nutrients and thus not a lot of productivity, if any. Whereas a eutrophic lake, eutrophic, not eutrophication, but just a eutrophic lake, has has a good amount of nutrients.
Hmm.
You have good productivity taking place, and the water's going to be less clear. It's going to be a
Right.
bit
Isn't that
turbid.
Lake Erie is eutrophic, and what Superior is oligotrophic, isn't it? Because Superior is the,
If I
I
recall
think,
correctly. So
yeah, yeah. I got that from
yeah,
college. Yes. I took Great Lakes ecology, actually, because I live on them. All right, let's see. We've got questions. We've got a very interested audience tonight. I know we have more to go through, but let's see if we can get a couple questions. Jim, how is the loss of Russian participation and sharing of the climate research affecting our current data? Oh,
it's terrible. There's
yeah.
just no way to
There you go,
it's just
Mindy.
terrible. You
Yeah,
know,
it is.
it creates a huge hole in our modeling. It creates a huge hole in our understanding of what's going on.
It's
It it
sad.
it, 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 it is.
Very
It, you know,
sad. All right, here's one more. Keith said, "There's not enough data to make any conclusion. The history or on aerosol control is only a few years, and other effects are much more important." Like you said, that's Keith.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah. All right. You want to go to anything else, and then we'll take more questions because everybody loves the questions. They get you.
Let's just quickly cover that last graphic just
All
to
right.
drive home my point.
All right. We sure will. Sorry, guys. I'm just like not with it as usually as as I usually am. Okay, there you go, Jim.
Okay, notice what this says. Oh, global ocean heat content from 0 to 700 meters, and it's given in 10 to the 22nd joules. Notice the clear increasing trend, and the increasing trend actually goes way back to before 1970.
Mm,
The dashed
wow.
line represents the median, right? So this goes way back, and we see all this accumulation of ocean heat in the upper 700 meters, well out of the photic zone. Care to tell me again how aerosol is driving Amoc? No, it's not. But this is the big, not just elephant in the room. This is the big herd of elephants in the room, because this heat, as the oceans stratify, this heat will, and in fact is already diffusing to the atmosphere.
Ah,
This diffusing is partly explaining, in my view, why we see the extremely high, off the charts, 6 standard deviations, crazy stuff for the sea surface temperatures in the North Atlantic.
Gotcha.
And this heat's going to diffuse, and it's going to contribute to further warming of the atmosphere.
So we've got a few problems, hey?
Just a bit.
Just a bit. Look at that. Yeah, I would say we do. Oh my gosh. So you ready?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get to you guys now because I know that's what you love, and we do too. Because Jim coming live with us is always such a bonus. It is. All right, guys. Let me say thank you to the people that gave super chats because it's really sweet. And I said thanks to the Aging Hippies Conspiracy Channel, that formerly Vegematic Deluxe. That's Chris. Thank you. And then Dwayne, thank you so. Oh my gosh, that was very generous, Dwayne. Support my kitty rescue. Yeah. Thank you, sweetheart. Oh my God, that's great. Actually, it's just in time because I have cat expenses. All right, that was sweet. And Nadia, thank you, Nadia. She has a question. Is there any way to gauge how close the oceanic heat sink is to saturation? 7% versus 100%, i.e., is a factor of 14 plus. So it seems like it might be something to watch for.
Well, water can keep absorbing heat energy until it reaches the vapor state.
Mm-hmm.
So you can if you want, you can calculate the entire volume of the ocean, calculate the average temperature, and then, using specific heat, calculate how much heat it can absorb before it starts boiling.
Well, remember that the oceans are going to boil? That's what's his name from the UN?
Well, when the sun starts expanding,
yeah. We won't be around to see that.
We won't be around for that.
No, we won't. I don't think we're going to be around.
Another 4.5 billion years or so for that.
We will be around, however, for the next. Wait, let me see here.
Actually, I saw a question saying about how the Amoc started or something. I thought I caught that on the side.
Okay, let's see. I know I can't seem to get. Okay. Is it
Let's see if
I can't seem to get a good sense of what would happen in the Northeast US when the Amoc stops or slows. No, that's
a lot of snow.
A lot of so slowing down. It's the slowing down. We know it's not going to stop, but it's good. The slowing.
Here
down.
It is. It's wireless mic. What got the Amoc going? How long did it take to get going to begin with?
All right, let me find.
That's really a very good question.
How did you find that?
I saw it out of the corner of my eye.
All right, I'll look for it to put it up. You answer it and say it again one more time while I look for it. Wireless mic.
What got
Thank you.
the Amoc going, and how long did it take for it to get going to begin with?
There it is.
The Isthmus of Panama.
The Isthmus.
The Isthmus of Panama.
Okay.
When that rose, that cut off communication between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. That changed the physics. That then helped create gyres.
How long ago?
Well, how long ago the Isthmus of Panama came up? I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's something like, I don't know, 10, 20 million years. I mean, it's,
wow.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I would say.
But that's the main cause. That cut off the mixing of Atlantic Pacific waters, and that then changed the bathymetry. It changed the boundaries, which then you change the physics. Then you create gyres.
Pretty cool. Well, I hope that was a satisfactory answer to your question. Aaron, hi Aaron. So does this mean worrying about Amoc is premature?
No, not necessarily. I mean, even a slowdown is going to cause noticeable,
In the
changes
food.
in changes in weather conditions and stuff like that. Um, but to say that it's going to collapse next year, let's just say I am highly skeptical about that.
Well, did anybody really say it's going to collapse next year?
Some of the sensational headlines were saying
Oh,
just that.
in the
And
media.
it's when you can see sensational, stupid headlines like that, that people who don't do this for a living, uh, get their knickers in a knot.
Jim, what do you think will be the geopolitical societal implications of Amoc collapse? I know the CIA studied Amoc collapse in the early 2000s.
Oh,
Ooh.
that's way above my pay grade. Sorry.
War. How about that, Thomas? War. Everybody will be fighting.
Yeah. Well, we already have that shit going on now.
Right. So think about it. If there was to be more, as time goes on, more of a slowdown, not a collapse, but as you have explained to us, countries would be affected, food chains will be affected. And of course, that will create conflict. Conflict will create wars, and we will blow ourselves up then.
Probably.
Somebody will
I
do
mean,
yeah.
wars are usually fought over resources.
Right. And that's exactly what's going to happen as this
But
slowly unfolds.
what not only just not going to happen is happening, has happened.
Right, but I'm directly from this AMOC.
Yeah,
It is.
it's going to create conditions that are going to put a lot of stress on a lot of societies.
Yeah. And I wonder, what societies first? I'd say probably more like the island nations and the people that are going to be affected directly
Well, the
by sea level
Maldives is
rise.
sinking.
Yeah,
Maldives is sinking.
it sure is.
Look to Africa. Africa is going to be hit hardest first.
Mm,
They're predicting major starvation outbreaks in Africa, especially if
wow.
the Sahel gets even drier.
Uh, Let me see. Oh, Mendy said she loved your explanation of Panama Rising starting the AMOC. Cool. Good. I'm glad.
Well,
I'm glad you're
thank
happy.
you. That is what caused the gyres in Amoc. So ultimately,
Oh, Keith has another. Aerosols are a way to slip geoengineering through the back door. Ooh,
ooh,
talking about the aerosols and
talk
that's a
about
loaded one, Keith. Why did you do that? Why did I show it?
talk about cloud nucleation and
Yeah,
spraying us, the contrails and all that crap,
or
right? I
putting the
guess.
sulfur back in the ship fuel.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, you really could. You could just go down a lot of rabbit holes.
What it comes down to is, we're screwed either way. We can put
Mm,
sulfur back in there. We're still going to have burning fossil fuels, so we're still going to warm the planet. Remove the sulfur, we're still going to warm the planet.
wow.
we're, we're, we're screwed no matter what. So,
Yeah. But we
just
never say when. We don't have a crystal ball. We all have a life to live. We have problems. We realize that, but we all have a life to live and reason for that. So, singing way. Peter Joseph is unveiling a new way to opt out economically. Watch out for this spring. We are going to opt out of the current system and create a better one. Well, let's see. You would hope that would happen because it sure as shit isn't working now, at least in the Western world or capitalism or any of that. But that's
well, we've
far
got
off
we've got
from a mark.
we've got people in northern Alaska who they just live off the land. And they
A little cold
they
though.
grab their they grab their resources, they harvest animals,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Well, they do that around here too. It's called Amish, but they just have religion. All right, Lightning Rod, sweetheart from Lightning Rod from Lightning Bay, Canada. AMOC at current rates is predicted by 2060. Okay, but what's predicted specifically?
He's probably saying a complete shutdown.
Do you think that that you said it's not going to happen like that though? Even 2016,
Well,
not a
I
complete
did say earlier that
collapse, he
it's
said. Yeah.
possible that a complete stoppage could occur by mid-century.
All right. But the
You know,
collapse. Yeah, that was
well, it all depends what you mean by collapse. If you have a stoppage, is that a collapse? Well, probably, because you're not going to have the deep current formation, so you're not going to have the conveyor belt. But again, there's always going to be a little bit of a lag time because you still got the other branches flowing in
right.
various parts of the ocean.
Karen from Climate Agents, that's her new channel, and she does some fabulous interviews. Singing way. Unless someone is a sociopath, it shouldn't matter when the Amoc stops. It should matter that we are putting conditions in place which will affect it in the future. Bravo. And we have, and we continue to, obviously, all the screaming and all the yelling about the things we're doing, what's changing. It's not fast enough. All right, Rick. Rick Small. Hi, Rick. Equilibrium. Rate of equilibrium will determine what and how fast ocean circulation is affected between the equatorial and polar regions. The closer to equilibrium, the slower it becomes. You like that statement? Yeah.
It's basically a correct statement. For
Oh,
example, let's apply that to the jet streams.
all right.
Why is the jet why are the jet streams meandering all over the place and going slower? Because the temperature differential between low and high latitudes is lessening, which means the pressure gradient is lessening. So apply that to the oceans, and that is a reasonable statement. I mean, don't forget, there's a reason why we take courses called fluid dynamics, because fluid dynamics, basically the same equations apply to the atmosphere, to the ocean, or to plasma, in some cases even to solids, right? But so it's what the only difference in analyzing those equations is the density of the materials you're considering.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Are you guys happy? Oh, here more government. Do you ever get info on what governments are actually truly thinking and doing? Do any of us?
Well, let's start with thinking. Do they?
Hey, I have a perfect flush. I do. I have thank you for giving me. Let's flush the governments away. Goodbye, governments. It would not be Environmental Coffee House without the flush of the day. I'm sorry. So we just thank you, astrologer, climate witness. We just flushed governments away because they all suck. Nobody's doing anything. All right, let's see. Oh, Void, Drew, you are a living legend, Jim. You are a living legend. Isn't that nice?
Well, well, thank you. I'm just happy to be living. But,
Oh, yeah.
it beats the alternative. Let's put it that way. The old dirt nap or something like that.
How about
So.
this? Can we do a deep dive like this sometime on the Pacific currents too? Specifically, the Kuroshio current that comes over from Japan.
Sure. Actually, I just
Okay,
looked at a paper that looked at the Kuroshio current,
really
and there's a bit of a slowdown, but it's because of a weakening of the equatorial currents. Has nothing to do with freshwater inputs.
interesting. Well, let's think about that. We could flesh something out and do a show like that. That would be definitely different. And I know that he's always concerned about what happened from the fallout and all the terrible things that happened from Fukushima also. And I don't blame him. That's a concern. It's still a concern. Stuff stays around forever. All right, guys.
And the Kuroshio current is also a westward intensification current. It's the western side of the Pacific gyre, North Pacific gyre.
All right. So are you all happy out there? I mean, I'm going to be editing this show and taking out some of the stuff, but I'll leave up this with all of our comments and all the stuff that happened, but I'm probably going to edit it because there was some good stuff in it to make it into a video. Do we have anything else, Jim, that we wanted to cover?
Because of my internet fucking up earlier.
Listen, shit happens. Everybody stayed. And the thing is, everybody understands live. They all understand that live is never going to be perfect. Everyone that has a, all right, wait, let's see. Okay, thanks.
I saw a question. Was it from Truno?
Trulia?
Saying from what hell? I just saw it.
Trulia.
Truno Holdaway.
Oh no, that's somebody different. Okay, let me find that person. Go ahead.
One Fairbanks native to another. How is this going to affect the salmon?
Oh, good.
Salmon. It's really interesting. ADFG, Alaska Department of Fish and Game, has actually, of all the fishery agencies around the planet, they actually have done a fairly okay job of managing the stocks. However, if you're going to start messing with the physics in the oceans, it is going to impact the salmon. And we are starting to see some weakenings in some of the year class strengths of the 5 major Pacific salmon species. Don't forget, in the Bering Sea, we are seeing a change in the phytoplankton regime from diatoms, which are cold water preferring phytoplankton, to coccolithophorids, which prefer warmer waters. So that's going to, because they have less productivity, that impacts the zooplankton and so on and so forth.
I have never heard of, say that again,
Coccolithophorids.
Coccolithophorids. Okay, tell us about them.
We call them, because it's a mouthful, we just say coccoliths for short.
Coccoliths? And what? Well, tell us a little about them.
They're a warm water phytoplankton. They prefer warmer temperatures than the diatoms. So the fact that they're replacing the diatoms means that the Bering Sea is warming.
It's warming. Absolutely. Phytoplankton is a fascinating subject, and so is algae.
They are not they don't have the productivity rate that the diatoms do. Wow. They're also smaller. So they're smaller, that the zooplankton that graze on them have to graze on more.
Okay, gotcha.
Hey, another UAF.
Yeah, this is great. Hi, Gabby. This is great. You went to Alaska, in Fairbanks. You went to school. That's awesome. I have another question. I think I highlighted it. Oh, it was from Drew Void. Can microalgae farms really sequester 100 gigatons of CO2 per year, as 2023 published research claims? What about iron ocean regeneration still being promoted despite you debunking it already? Ooh. Oh, he follows you. Drew follows you.
I don't know the specifics about the 100 gigatons, so I can't really comment to that.
But he'll make a video on it.
The question becomes, how much are we talking? Are we talking over the entire globe? And in which case, what is what's the biomass of the algae in question? What's their rate of productivity? That kind of stuff there. And then and if you knew that, you can then make the certain calculation. As to iron enhancing, well, it's again, like everything else, there are unintended consequences, unknown parameters, unanticipated interactions, and so on and so forth. The ocean's a big place. You're trying to mess with a big place.
Yeah, it's the heaviest. It's the heaviest out of every, between atmosphere and ocean. Oceans are very heavy. Very heavy. They're very big. They're very important, as we are obviously seeing here. Okay, well, here's one. Jim, can you explain the Amoc in this sphere drops?
Well, the best way to look at that is to, and I don't know the numbers offhand, it's not something I clutter my brain with, but those are easily looked up. I mean, you can look up what the sphere drips are for the Gulf Stream. You can look up what the sphere drips are for the North Atlantic Drift. The numbers are available, so
Okay.
you can readily find them. Um, when you look at gyres, keep in mind that on the western side, because it's flowing faster, you have higher sphere drops than on the eastern side where it slows down and gets wider and that kind of stuff. So the flow rate that where the North Atlantic Drift branches off from the North Atlantic gyre will be less in sphere drops, will be less than the Gulf Stream proper. In fact, the Gulf Stream, if I recall, reaches its maximum sphere drop basic kind of around the maritime provinces, so somewhere in that area. And but you can easily find those numbers there. But again, keep in mind it's just a volumetric measure. It does not give you a hint as to the flow rate, the velocity of the water itself.
Right. Okay. Well, how is everybody doing out there? Hello, Jan. All right. It's been a good show, even with the problems. Thank you for answering the questions. I think that pretty much Lightning Rod's really having fun. I rub salve on my cochleophorans. He said they were itchy. He's got a great personality. I love our followers. Listen, thank you for the super chats, guys. And like, subscribe, join the channel.
You could rub salve on your coccyx.
Oh, that's what hurts. My coccyx hurts. And I don't even have a coccyx, but I have a coccyx. Well, everybody, it's really been wonderful. Thank you so much. Poppy says, thanks, Jim. Volume, wait, let me get it on there. Volume, not rate. Thank you. All right, that's really good.
The definition of sphere drops is, one sphere drop is equal to 1 million cubic meters of water.
Okay.
So, and that's per second. So if something's saying, well, this is going at 10 sphere drops, that's 10 million cubic meters going past a point per second. That is a lot of water.
That's a lot of water. Oh boy. All right. I think we're heading into the music time. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Jim, thank you. And I am actually going to edit this, but I'll leave it up, but I'm going to edit this into a nice, tight video. And guys, I love you. Thank you. I will see you Friday night. I will see you tomorrow night on Left Past 10 with the Letter Hack and Jake from What You Can Do and Andrea Rovensky from Above It All. Thanks. Love you guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your patience.
And don't forget, go to Jim's Patreon. Give him a sub to the channel. He's got a great channel, Science Talk with Jim Massa. Thank you, guys.